This is Matt Brown, and you're listening to Just a Good Conversation. Robert Mora has spent the last 20 years fighting for redemption. A foolish moment could have cost him his career. Robert learned from it and has become better for it. Has spent the last 14 years trying to make, not take photos for the LA Galaxy.
When I'm there at the game and I'm doing the same thing, the warm-ups happen the same way. And, you know, I could be there, I could capture it, but I'm killing myself trying to figure out something different, a different place to be, even though they're doing the same thing. I do that every game. And when I don't do that, I get angry at myself. And I was frustrated before the game yesterday. I was like, man, the lighting is horrible and this and that and, whatever. But it's because, I do care about wanting to make those images that I'm in that mindset of, no, I got to make something out of this. You know what I mean? And that's important for people to carry with them. Like, you can't just keep making that same stuff and that you're good at.
I'm Matt Brown, host of Just a Good Conversation. Take a listen to our archives. My guests have ranged from basketball coaches, writers, and gold medal winner Jenny Topping.
Getting on that podium, you're trying to put it together. Like, and I just remember, what is the point of this? Having that feeling. And, I'm bending down and they're putting the gold medal around my neck. And I look up into the stands and my parents and my sister and her boyfriend at the time and an aunt are all just bawling. They're crying. And I sort of put it together. I was like, wow, this is, at that time, this was my give back to my family who sacrificed everything for me.
Let's take a quick break for our sponsor before diving into part 2 of my conversation with Robert Mora. At what point do you decide you're going to make a jump to Getty?
Well, that wasn't really by my choice, to be honest with you. Again, we talk about ego, and like when I was at that point, after 2 successful years and, like you're just working like a dog, you get to the point where you kind of feel like, what am I doing? What's in it for me? How, and I had a massive ego working for the senior photographer of the league,
with the hottest team.
Yeah.
In a sexy town.
Success, living like rock stars. Like I'm saying, we go places, you're not paying for things to eat and you're...
How old are you at this point?
I want to say 23, right? Yeah, around that age. Because I think I started when I was 18, working for him.
Okay. That's a scary age.
It is. And all the credit to Noah Graham, because Noah was young when he started, but Noah had a much better head on him to handle that success, to handle the responsibilities and even financially, I know that he was smart with his money, saving his money, buying gear that he, knew that he needed. But yeah, I made a knucklehead mistake at the All-Star game and, wanted to get Shaq's attention. And I put something on my back and during a TV broadcast. And the person who was in charge, I think his name is Greg Winnick. Yeah. Saw that, and I just got in a lot of trouble. It was like, dude, that's a no-no. Like, you can't do stuff like that. And so then I ended up getting suspended, and then it was like a whole thing. And then, and I feel really bad because more so being a knucklehead, I just let Andy down big time. I let him down. And that to this day, hurts me, that I put him in that position. But, they knew that it was best because of how I had been acting up to that point. You remember the one year they didn't bring Garrett in? SI hired him.
Yes.
Yeah. SI, the NBA didn't, and I was angry. I was really angry about that.
Oh my God, I hadn't thought of that since then.
Yeah,
Jesus.
no, and he's been with them ever since.
Right, but I forgot about that until you snapped that into my memory. That was, yeah.
Yeah, so that one year, I raised the biggest stink about it. And I had the biggest attitude, and I'd make these little signs, where's Garrett? And so the person who was in charge, Mark Hersheimer didn't appreciate that.
Hershey,
he, you know, like, and that's what I'm saying. Young, ego, didn't know any better. And so there was a lot of things that kind of led up, and they were like, dude, like, we just can't have you here. You know?
What do you think that was? The ego coming from? Just because it was just so much happening and you were in, like, you know, second in charge?
Being young and having that kind of success, I think, was, you know, because, you know, when you're with Andy, you're at the top.
Yeah, it's a rock star life.
Yeah, I mean, even all the responsibilities and everything that you had to do, like, you're, you know, like, you've got it made. And I mean, I always appreciated it. I was always grateful for it, but you know, as a young person, when you're looking at that to feel fulfilled, and, you know, like, I'm only out of high school,
right?
Not too long, you know, like, you know, like, you know, no, wait, yeah, how old was I? No, I don't want to say 18. I was 21 when I was at the NBA.
Okay.
And then, so it must have been 25, 26.
Still dumb as a box of rocks.
Yeah, but
right. I mean, you think you know the world, and you don't know anything.
Yeah, but so, like, and that's the thing, is that, like, you know, I didn't have to work that hard to get that far, and I had it. I was already there. You know what I mean? And that was, you know, like I said, credit to Noah, because the way I handle it was like, oh man, like, you know, you get there so fast, like, you should have to work harder to get to that point. And so,
do you think it might have been easier if Garrett had stuck around for like 3 or 4 years, so you were the number 2 for a lot longer?
Definitely.
You know, because there's something about being at the bottom of that totem pole.
Yeah.
That will humble you.
Yeah, exactly. And the first couple of years, while I was there, like, you know, there was still work to do to get to the point where they would let me shoot. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't like 4 years. It wasn't like, you know, like a long time, like you're saying, to have to really
grind.
Yeah, to go after it.
You can't touch a camera unless you're rewinding it.
Exactly. And so, you know, that I think was probably what led to me sort of having that just really, really dumb, young, you know, and so, yeah, so once that happened, I was like, okay, well, I gotta figure something out, because I'm not doing this anymore. But Getty was hiring, and I talked to them. They were hiring in their news and entertainment.
Okay.
And so, as it turned out, they were hiring right when that kind of thing happened. And then I went and I, you know, sent them my portfolio, had a meeting with them, and, you know, they were like, yeah, like, we'll hire you, you know. And it was news and entertainment. It wasn't sports, which is a different thing.
Right.
You know, so I was like,
did you think you could do that? I mean, because that's news is different. Covering a fire or an event from a basketball game.
Part of me thought that, because I remember interviewing, and, you know, the woman who was in charge, her name was Roxanne, she was saying, well, yeah, you know, like, we're going to send you to all these big events, you know, like, you're going to be, you know, covering a lot of, you know, important news things that happen, you know, and, you know, we can talk to Brock about getting you on the sports side to do some stuff. And so I thought, like, okay, like, once I talk to Brock, and, like, you know, like, I'll make it happen. Yeah, I'll get in there. And so I was a little bit more, like, scared of the fact that I had something stable and that I wasn't going to have that. So, you know, I took it, and man, like, that was an eye opener, like, going from sports to, like, news and entertainment, because it ended up being, like, a lot of red carpet stuff. I had to go down to the courthouse sometimes and wait for, like, Brad Pitt to show up with, you know, certain things. Yeah, I mean, just they'd put me on these assignments to where it was like, okay, you know, like, Variety's going to do a thing about, like, the best restaurants, you know, in Hollywood. So I'd have to go and, like, do editorials, shoots about, you know, certain restaurants and certain places. And it was okay, but it was like, I mean, it was vastly different than the lifestyle that I had been living, you know.
That's got to be 180.
Yeah. And you go from being the first person in line to the person fighting to get in line, you know? And it's like, oh man, like, you know, you see these red carpet photographers and how that game works. And I stuck out like a sore thumb. Like, you know, they're like this and you're like, I'm trying to get the right composition and the right lighting. And, you know, that's not how it works. You know, like you got to get a dead eyeball shot of them looking at you. And if you didn't get it, you got yelled at. And I was yelled at a lot for not getting, you know, Jennifer Aniston looking right dead into the camera, you know, or, you know, missing a full length shot of, you know, Salma Hayek in whatever dress she was wearing, like stuff like that. So it was hard, but it was a good learning experience. Very good learning experience.
That's gotta be an ego check right there.
Big time. It wasn't, you know, like I said.
Were you living at home or on your own?
No, I was living on my own.
Okay.
Yeah, I was living on my own.
So you got bills to pay, you got expenses. You're it's a different mode.
Yeah, and you know, that was the thing is I already had you know, things that I had to take care of and was responsible for. So I had to really take that job, you know, because you know, building a freelance career is not, you know, it doesn't happen overnight. It takes time, persistence.
So much work.
Yeah, and so, you know, it would have taken me a long time to really get to the point where I felt good about doing that. But
how are you making clients and keeping clients? Better now than you ever were? I mean, it's a challenge to find clients, make them, keep them.
Yeah, I feel
keep them happy. It's like a love relationship.
It is.
You're dating.
Yeah, it is, and it's, you know, to be 100% honest, like, you know, since I had kids, it's really hard. It's really hard because you have a family. You got to be home with your family. You got to do things that are, you know, at least to me,
you got like, dad stuff to do.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, for me, the thing is that you really need to be out there talking to people, meeting people. It's like I said earlier, it's about networking, about relationships, about those kinds of things. And everything.
Do you have an agent or representation?
No.
Did you before or no?
No. Mm-mm.
So now it's on you.
Yeah. So, and everything that I basically have as an established thing now is from when I was at Staples Center, from the people, the community relations director that I met at Staples Center, eventually went to the Galaxy and they got rid of their photographer, and that's how I got hired. And then somebody that I worked with in marketing at Staples Center went out and started her own business, and she connected me to her best friend who was at MGM Mirage. That's how I got those jobs. And then, you know, Vanessa Cromer worked with Michael Roth at Staples Center.
Right.
She hired me for the Greek and all the things that she was doing. And then her intern ended up hiring me at Honda Center. That's where I'm, you know,
right
now. So all of those things early on were seeds, and those seeds eventually spread out and grew.
Right.
So I mean, I think now the hardest part for me is those seeds, still getting those seeds out, because for me, my responsibilities with the Galaxy have been increasing. So that gets a lot of my attention.
Sure.
You know, it's my priority. It's my biggest account. So that's what I focus on.
Do you do anything towards the end of the year, or maybe the end of the season, for a client, whether it's make a book or give them a gift or a thank you or anything like that?
I try to send notes. I try to send, you know, like handwritten notes. Mm-hmm. Gifts are a little, I don't know. I'll give gifts to certain people, maybe like 4 or 5 people. Mm-hmm. But even more so than like at the end of the year, I'll try to be, you know, I'll try to stay connected throughout the year, even if it's somebody that I'm not really working with.
Right.
You know, I'll just send a note to say like, oh, you know, hey, you know, I saw it, because the great thing now is that you can see what people are doing on social media. Mm-hmm. I saw that you took a vacation. Like, did you take any photos, like, you know, of this monument where you were at, you know, whatever. Yeah. So things like that, just, you know,
keep a connection.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I used to a lot, you know, do the lunch dinner thing where, I'd go out with clients, take them to lunch, whatever, just kind of catch up. But I tried for it to be genuine, not like, hey, what projects do you have that you can, I mean, there's
that fine line dance.
Yeah.
They understand why you're taking them to lunch. It's to catch up, but it's to see what's coming down the pike.
Yeah, exactly. And I would say, I think that some of them I genuinely did have like a friendship with, to where, we could go out on a Friday night and, like hang out, have drinks, that kind of thing.
Right.
But I mean, it's harder to do when you're older, obviously,
Sure. Again, it goes back to the responsibility of the tykes.
Yeah, totally. So, I don't do that as much. It's just more staying in contact and connected. And I think at a certain point, that's the other beauty about like where people like you and I are at in our careers, is you have an established reputation, you've delivered on things. So, like the credibility is there, right? You know what I mean? Like you're not trying to prove yourself to someone,
right?
Which, I'm grateful for.
Well, I remember when you got the Galaxy job was 2007, right?
Yeah.
And I was happy as can be, but then I was giggling inside. I remember, I don't even know why the hell I was there. I don't know if, was it Beckham's first year?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why I was there. And
I remember when you were there. I remember it.
And in you come with your giant iMac and you're unpacking it. And I'm like, wow, this guy's really going all out. He's
I didn't have a laptop.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't have a laptop.
Yeah, and you brought it in, unfolded that thing still out of the Apple box.
Yeah, out of the box, yeah. That's what I used that whole year.
Plop that baby down. And
dude, I mean, at that point, and that's the crazy thing, is like at that point, I didn't have a lot of sports gear because I was shooting advertising.
Right,
after I
left it.
Yeah, after I left Getty, I was shooting advertising, like freelance stuff. Mm-hmm. So the Galaxy stuff came to me like I wasn't planning on it.
Right. And isn't it funny how life works, right?
Yeah.
If you went begging for it for the 3 years prior,
of course,
go away.
Totally. And like all of those things, all those opportunities had to have opened up at the right time. But I had a 5D. So the first probably 6 months of that season, I was shooting games with a 5D. Yeah. And a 300 that I was renting, or a 400 I was renting. And people were like, what is this guy doing? You're the team photographer? But I was making it work, man.
God love you. You're working your ass off.
No, I was making it work. But I remember specifically what you're talking about. And that's one of the things that I've always appreciated about you, man, is because I remember that you brought a strobe and you were lighting.
Oh, the
you
tunnel.
Were setting. Yeah, you were setting. And I was like, dude, like, see, dude, like that's. And even at that point, I was thinking, like, people just don't do that. People like that's going that extra step that, young people who, they just see the end result instead of thinking like, well, maybe I should take a risk on that. And I don't know how those pictures turned out for you, but the fact that you took a risk and said, I'm going to put a strobe out here on this, that's like, nobody else was thinking that.
No. And it comes from Andy, from Andy Haight,
mm-hmm.
from Peter, from McDonough, Walter, working from all those guys. You had to make a picture, mm-hmm. especially those early SI guys, to separate themselves mm-hmm. from the pack. You had to.
Yeah.
So I had the toolbox of, I knew how to use a strobe, I knew how to use a light, I knew how to pocket wizard. I couldn't be in the tunnel, but I can make the light to make it give me something different. It was just going the extra mile to create a picture nobody else in that building was going to have.
Exactly.
That's it.
Exactly.
And it was so lucky it worked. I mean, I knew it was going to work picture-wise, but just the way, because I couldn't see him.
Yeah.
So I had to just wait until I could see that blonde head for us to fire it, because they wouldn't let us be by the tunnel.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And I got him in the right stride and suit, just walking right through. And
right. See, and
ESPN
that's the thing.
Used it.
Yeah. See, that's what I'm saying. Like, and those kinds of things, like, I still try to keep with me now. Is like,
we have to.
Sometimes it's important. Sometimes I'll try to use strobes when the players are coming in, or I'll try to take a flash to the, out on the field for warm-ups or things like that. Just something different, something that's going to break it up and be a shot that you're just not going to get easily.
Right.
You know what I mean?
You've been doing this
Just
14 years.
Yes.
Right? The moment it becomes routine to you and you're not getting excited driving into work, stop.
Yeah.
Just throw the cards out the car and just turn around and go home.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm super critical of myself in terms of how I approach things with the team because, I don't want to get in from that early experience where I was complacent and I, just kind of thought that I had it all together.
Right.
So like with the Galaxy, even, yesterday when I'm there at the game and I'm doing the same thing, the warm-ups happen the same way.
Right.
And, I could be there, I could capture it, but I'm killing myself trying to figure out something different, a different place to be, even though they're doing the same thing. I do that every game.
Right.
And when I don't do that, I get angry at myself. And I was frustrated before the game yesterday. I was like, man, there's, the lighting is horrible and this and that and, whatever. But it's because, I do care about wanting to make those images that I'm in that mindset of, no, I got to make something out of this.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's, that's important for people to carry with them. Like you can't just keep making that same stuff and that you're good at. I know what I'm good at. I know what I can get, and I'm sure you're the same way, but it's like, okay, I can do that. Like, but I'm not going to grow as an artist. I'm not going to grow as a photographer if I'm not pushing myself.
Right. The moment you start taking photos, it's over. You have to keep making them and pushing yourself and have no limits.
Yep.
Don't be afraid of failure.
Yep.
Nothing is ever created by being easy.
Yeah.
If I go out and I'm shooting whatever it is and I fail 4 times, at least I was trying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I will never fault myself for that.
Yeah.
But if I just come vanilla and I'm like, I'm just going to get through this thing, stop me now.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's bad. And I think it can be easy for us to fall into that mindset, for us to fall into that, like, oh, well, like I got this, because you get so good at it, it's so easy for you to do that. And that's a problem. Like you get yourself in a lot of trouble if you're, if you fall in that area,
Those first couple of years of the Galaxy, how were they?
They were rough. They're very rough. But in the fact that they were not very good, they were, I was like, what did I sign myself up for? This is like, it's terrible.
Well, the last sporting event you were in a championship, and now all of a sudden you're.
Yeah. And so, but it was like that with the Lakers. They weren't bad, but they were getting knocked out of the playoffs, whatever.
Spurs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The Jazz, all that stuff. They weren't winning. And so coming from the place of winning, it's hard not to take it as like, well, like, why am I here? Why am I doing this if I'm not being part of something successful?
Right.
But it was really important because going through that, and then finally when the team did start having success, that's when, at least for me, it took off to another level, because I had been trying, I had been persisting through it. And it just made those moments that I was capturing, the moments that I was making, it had more importance to me, and I appreciated it more, and it just gave me more, passion and excitement to be back doing it. And, I think with, it's funny because with the NBA and, NHL and things like that, when players would come in and stuff like that, you'd photograph them. Like, we didn't do that in MLS when I started. So I was like, I'm going to do that. So we did that, and, social media started coming on the scene. And
right, because you started, there was just a gallery, right? Just a photo gallery.
Yeah, and, we started doing, like...
It's funny, 2007 doesn't seem that long ago, but social media, the way we were giving images, night and day.
Hugely different. Yeah, it's like, that's like, it was like a website. Then it became like a blog. You know what I mean? It wasn't Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, none of that stuff. Now there's like TikTok and all of those different things.
You're just feeding the beast.
Yeah. So at least, for us, it was, pushing those things photography wise, like not just the game action. It was all the other stuff that we could try to push. And so we were very big on that. And then finally, like those years that we started winning championships is really, because I had learned all that from Andy, all of that stuff, those behind the scenes, the books, the rare air, all that stuff. I was like, why aren't we doing that here? So that's really like when we started doing those kinds of things.
Who did you have to go to and make that kind of pitch to get it to the next level?
Well, the communications director just had to allow me to do it.
Okay.
And then once we started having a social media team, I would just do that and send them that, and they were like, "This is awesome. Can you keep sending us that?" And then when we got our current director of digital and marketing, he was all about it. He was like
all in.
Yeah, he was like, dude, like whatever you want to do, like we'll support it. Like we'll be behind it. And so he was the one who actually really was encouraging about me being able to travel, because I had never traveled up until I went on a few things here and there.
Rare. Sure.
Yeah, very rare. But now it's the kind of thing where it's like an expectation. It's like we have somebody on the road. And I would say almost all MLS teams still are trying to get to that point, because for them it's video. There's always a video person traveling.
Right.
But there isn't always a photographer. So there's maybe like a handful of us that are traveling regularly. But see that, like having, like we talked about, having somebody who's in your corner that's supportive of what you're doing and sees the value in it, and it's not just like, oh yeah, we'll find somebody to do it.
Right. We'll hire somebody.
Yeah. So, so they've just been letting me do my thing, and it helps to have a coaching staff who supports what you're doing, who, is behind it. So our coach now, he played for us in 2008.
Okay.
And when we signed him as our coach, I was like, man, I hope he remembers me. Whatever. And
you want that rapport, that relationship. Yeah.
Because it took me a while when Bruce Arena was the head coach to kind of get in.
Was he a little standoffish? Just
a little bit at first. Yeah. I mean, the players were fine.
Right. It's always the coach.
Yeah. The coach, obviously, because,
he's the gatekeeper to the locker room and everything else. Sure.
Exactly. And so, but eventually, it was to the point where, all access, fine, no problem. And, coming from the background that we have, where your limits are, what your proper etiquette, where you're supposed to be, where you're not supposed to be, how to be discreet, when not to take a picture, But he remembered me when we signed him, and I said, "Do you remember me?" And he's like, "Oh yeah." He's like, "Robert, right?" And I said, "Yeah." And he's like, "Oh, it's good to see you." And so it was nice because I knew, okay, he remembers me, and sure enough, he's been fine with.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, because our last coach was like, no, don't even walk on the field. It was really, really tough.
Really?
Yeah.
That's their thing.
But he came from Argentina, and it was more, they have an antagonistic relationship with their people, their media, and they saw us as media instead of staff.
Right.
So, but yeah, so now we're just the other day, the guys are in the pool, so I'm jumping in the pool with them, trying to, shoot some of that behind the scenes stuff. And that's what I saw with Andy. That's what I saw him doing, those kinds of things. So it's that's naturally what I gravitate towards and want to do.
Those are the great photos.
Yeah. Because people don't see that stuff, you
No.
know? And then
is that the stuff that gets the most views?
It does. Yeah. The game people don't care about the game action stuff.
Isn't it funny?
Yeah. People,
you can have this great sliding, diving header, whatever.
Yeah.
Guys in the pool working out. 20,000 likes.
Yeah. And it's kind of sad, but that is our culture, individualized athlete, type of thing.
Well, you're pulling back a curtain.
Yeah.
And you're showing a life that nobody sees.
Yeah. And the crazy thing is I feel like a lot of what I do has a lot more value to the players than it does to the team necessarily. The team has the needs, but somebody like our designated player, Javier Hernandez, like, I mean, I'm feeding his social media team photos all the time. I mean, if you looked at his social media feed, it's a majority of it is photos that we take, you know, because that's how it is now with athletes. You know,
now talk about that. You're feeding actually individuals where, you know, it used to be you were feeding the team photo gallery, and then you maybe feed the team social media. Now you got individual players that have needs for, can you send us photos?
Oh, man.
They got coordinators that you're dealing with.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, for the most part, they've all been good. Like, they've all been, you know, respectful. And big guys like Zlatan Ibrahimovic, I mean, he was always cool about that stuff. Like, he was never pressing, but it was kind of like an expectation. Okay, yeah, you know, like, you'll send me some stuff, cool.
Pushing the brand. But
now, I mean, we have individual, like, player folders. They have a link, and it's like after every home game, like, everything is, by the time they're done showering, all of their photos from the game are up in that link, and they can post them, whatever. But it's funny because, you know, on the road, we don't have our editor, our live editor, like we have at home games. And so, you know, like, our PR people will text me and say, like, oh, when are you going to put their photos in the link? And it's like, dude, you know, like, it's just me, like, here on the road, you know.
I'm on the bus, relax.
Yeah. But, I mean, we've figured it out. It's like, I'll airdrop to her, and she'll send out, you know, everything individually and stuff. But it's you know, it's crazy because it's like, you know, 20 something people that want photos, you know, so so it's like your needs are much more involved than it is, you know, with the team, because the team is just getting stuff live throughout the game, and, you know, like, you know what their needs are, boom. But, you know, like, sometimes you might only have, you know, 1 or 2 shots of a player, you know, and they're like, oh, did you get this shot, whatever, and it's like, no, I wasn't, you know.
Yeah, he was down there, I'm down here.
I was blocked off, yeah.
Right.
And some players, what I appreciate is some players are really good about, like, tagging and giving photo credits, but, like, most of the time they're just kind of like,
they don't care.
Yeah, I don't care, you know. So
walk me through, what's a day at a home game like for you?
So it's still kind of that same life of, you know, first one to get there, last one to leave.
7 o'clock game. What time are you showing up?
I'm there no later than 2 o'clock.
Okay.
No later than 2 o'clock. And it's like that because now we have a team. So whereas if it was still just me, I would probably get there like between 1 and 1:30.
So when did you start developing a team?
In 2014.
Okay.
Yeah. I work with John Lorenz, amazing photographer, works for Canon, has become one of my best friends. Yeah, I mean, he's really helped me take it to like the next level in terms of what we do. But getting there early, getting set up, getting the remotes ready if I'm doing them. There's usually things like pregame tailgates that happen. We have these requirements where we've given players Chevys. So we have to shoot the players coming in the Chevy, and we can do a social media post. Yeah, we're trying to do it a little bit different this year. We're trying to, like, you know, there's been a few times where what I'll do is I'll meet the player and I'll ride in with them. So shooting them, like, driving in. But we're also trying to do more like lifestyle things, like how do they use the car when they're not at the stadium, you know, those types of things. But yeah, so get there early enough to get everything set up, get everything sort of, you know, who's what responsibility, get our editor Mike set up.
You got one editor?
One editor, yeah.
Intern? Or you got an intern, or just the three of you?
So we had an intern, but because of COVID last year, they ended up giving her 0 hours, which it's funny because, like, we can't give her any hours, but we can hire her on a freelance rate, which she gets paid more on a freelance rate, I think, you know, because she shoots the second team games for me.
Okay.
But then, yeah, so we have an editor who's like an intern, so he just edits, you know, games for us. And So, for us, it's about speed and being able to get stuff out fast. So we've figured it out. We've got it down. Like,
No more iMac?
no more iMac. No. I mean, dude, I probably would be out there with an iMac just because I'm getting older and the screen.
Dragging that 27-inch behind you.
Yeah, I know. It's like, I miss, like, if I had the nicer ones, like, I wish I had those. They're lighter and thin.
Yeah.
But like, just a quick technical how we do it. Like, I shoot to, you've used Snitch?
Yep.
Awesome. Incredible. So with Lightroom and an iPad, like, you can do the split screen. Mm-hmm. So we just use a cloud Lightroom CC. And I just throw that thing in a backpack, connect it to a MiFi, and I've got the transmitters. So I'm shooting, and we'll do this sometimes on the road, and that's cool. Like, it can be done from anywhere as long as you have an internet connection. So
that's why you're carrying the hotspot with you.
Yeah. So I carry a hotspot and an iPad.
Right.
And so Lightroom's open, Snitch is open, and I just send images in. And because he's sitting there in the press box or in the press room, those images pop up, boom, right in front of him. Like, and he just edits, boom, drops it in Slack.
What are you doing? Small JPEGs or?
Small JPEGs. Well, no. They're like
medium.
They're about medium. Yeah, depending on.
It's for the web. It's fine.
Yeah, exactly. I think sometimes I'll have like a wide angle, like a really wide angle with me. So I'll shoot those on larger, just in case I end up needing to crop.
Right.
Yeah. But for the most part, they're just like medium.
That's
JPEGs.
wireless, right? Not tethered into your camera. Yeah.
Yeah. It's awesome. The new, we use Canon, and those transmitters are solid.
Oh, they're great.
Super solid. And so, it's fast. It's like super fast. And so that's that ends up happening throughout the whole game. They're getting arrival images. They're getting players coming in their Chevy. We're at the tailgate shooting fans. They're getting that. Pre-game, like, I'll pop in the locker room just to see if there's anything happening.
Sure.
Sometimes there is, sometimes there isn't. And then, up to game time, we're shooting, and then we get in our spots for the game, sending out as much as possible. Sometimes teams need help, so we'll shoot some stuff for other teams. And, it's all going in there real time.
That's nice.
Yeah, it's very... I'm pretty proud of it. That's one of the things that was big for me. And that's one of the reasons why I feel like, Canon has been very supportive, is because, like, we're like, look, I'll push your stuff. Like, we'll make it happen. And so, we were pretty on top of it, and, go through, shoot a game, game's over.
Where do you prefer to shoot during a game? Are you an end zone guy, a sideline guy, next to your bench, across? What do you prefer?
So typically players run to the corner to celebrate, like our players do. So being on the end line is usually what I found the best thing. But the hard part is, in the last few years, is they've changed where players warm up. So instead of being on the sideline, they'll go on the end line sometimes.
Why?
Because they put luxury seats.
Of course they did.
Yes. Yeah. So, when I first started, I was on the sideline. I was right about at the 18.
Okay.
And that I always felt like was a good spot for me. But it's different because you're shooting left, right. As opposed to at the end, you're shooting more vertical.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I do better vertically now than I do horizontally. I just
that looks
get more.
Totally different.
Yeah. Yeah, because it depends on the kind of style the teams play. Because if they're very pass the ball side to side, then you don't get a ton. If they're a counter-attacking team, then you'll get a good amount of stuff coming at you. But yeah, it just kind of depends. So I'm usually on the end line, and I try to push the boundaries a little bit. Like when they're scoring, like, I'll get up and I'll jump the board and I'll try to get close. Which they haven't stopped me from doing that yet. They haven't said anything. But like when Zlatan came his first game, I've never seen a TV camera go on the field. The TV camera went on the field and got in their celebration. Like, I was blown away. I was like, what? Like,
Was it ESPN or who was
it was Fox.
It was Fox.
Yeah, that was the first time I'd ever seen them go on the field.
Cable or
during
wireless?
A game. No, it was a cable. Yeah,
Wow.
It was a cable. Yeah, because there were two dudes.
Whoa.
Yes.
The Polar went with him.
I know. I was like, gosh, because it was on the other side of where they normally shoot too. He ran out there, and fortunately we got our shots by then because. I mean, you know how that is. You have a TV man.
Did you almost think to yourself, why didn't I follow him?
I don't want to push it that much. Yeah, I know.
Like all of a sudden.
Yeah, well, that's a little bit like I won't step onto the field, but I'll
jump the board.
I'll get right up on the line. Yeah. So
it looks nice, when you're there.
Yeah, sometimes
shoot that wide. It's beautiful.
Sometimes you get a great shot. Sometimes it doesn't work out.
No, I've seen you've got some good stuff with them, right? Coming into those corners.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, sometimes it works out. I mean, I'm still, for some reason, I've always missed the slide. Like when they slide in. Like last night, Javier slid into the corner after he scored. And normally on the road, I would be on the sideline for road games because that's usually where, you're out of the way for warm-ups.
Right.
So that's already a known thing. So had I have been in that spot, I would have gotten that slide. But and it's always happened if I move up, they slide to the corner. If I'm in the corner, they slide the other way. So
is it even worth trying to set up a remote for it?
I've thought about it. I think I'm going to try it because you can. It just has to be in a certain spot to where, because on one side the official will run the sideline official. Yep. So if you had it on
the opposite side,
if you had it on one side of the field, like the bench side, it would work like in the first half, where the official doesn't run, where the official's on the opposite side.
Yeah.
But then on the other side, you would have to put it on the end line.
Or could you be there? Could you cover at least one with you and one with the remote and kind of cover your bases, or at least try to help out the percentages?
I probably could. I could probably figure it out, but the hard part is certain areas, like I'm saying, they've never slid to the opposite side of me.
Okay.
They've slid on the side that I'm on.
But just never right there.
I've never been, yeah. And so, but that's one of the reasons why I keep like at least a 1635 or a 24 to 70 next to me.
Absolutely. You kick yourself. You're sitting there holding a 70-200.
Yeah, well, I don't even use a 70 to 200. I use a 1 to 4, and then I shoot with a 6. So, for me, like, yeah, that like I need that extra wide sometimes. But like I'm saying, now that they warm up on the end line instead of the sideline, they used to do it behind the board. Nobody was ever in the way. And then they put those seats in there. And now, now they just go on the end. And it sucks for like the media photographers too, because that usually ends up being in front of them. Right. And I'm like, dude, it's messing it up for like these guys. Like these guys need to get their shots. Like it's important for us that they get what they need. Right. And so it sucks for them. Because I can move to the side, they can't. Right. And then, but even right now, because of COVID, like they're only allowed to shoot on the opposite end line. Oh, God. So they can't even shoot. They can't even shoot on the side that the bench side.
How are you running a photo department?
I think I'm pretty good. Yeah, I think I'm pretty good. All of that experience early on working for Andy was massive. I think how he directed me, some of the expectations that the building had, things that the Kings needed, working with the NBA and having that sort of like, kind of hierarchy about how to plan things out, those big events where you wanted to make sure you're covered. But I feel like one of the biggest contributions that I've made to the team is the photo archive. Okay. So I started that in 2012, and we just use Zenfolio. We don't use Photo Shelter.
Really?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Because Photo Shelter is so expensive. Okay. It's ridiculously expensive, and it's great. It's robust. It's reliable. but I can do the same things on Zenfolio. So I found that to be the best for what I like. So I can set access permissions. I can assign who can get in and who can't. But we shoot thousands of images. Our sponsorship photographers shoot thousands of images. They're of the every board we got. And so I'm not as involved with the sponsorships. I just make sure they're doing what they need to do.
Right.
But they have their own thing. There's 3 of them that are just shooting sponsorships.
Jesus.
Yes. That are just shooting, activations on the concourse, that are just shooting. Yeah. There's on a regular, before everything went down with COVID, there's 6 of us shooting, and we had an editor. Yeah.
Holy
I
God.
know. And that's why I love the team, is because they're supportive of that. Like I said, look, I need somebody else shooting, doing what I'm doing. I need an intern who's going to be running around doing all the fan stuff, all the stuff that,
Right. You can't be everywhere.
Yeah.
You can't. There will be something sacrifices if you try to do it all.
Totally. And, they don't want to sacrifice that. So,
right.
Obviously now, because we haven't had her come to games, we've had to sacrifice that. But yeah, so in any case, they shoot a ton of images. And so,
it's mind-boggling.
Yeah, it's not my preferred way of doing things, but again, I don't oversee that part of it so much. I just make sure that it's where it needs to be. So I believe with the photo shelter tiers, you get up to something like 1 terabyte or 2, whatever. We've obliterated that already, because we've added our archive from since I was before there. So all of the stuff that we had from 1996 through 2007, we've added to it. So there's thousands of images.
You need that stuff for social media. You need stuff to recall.
Yeah. And, we'll post historical moments and different things about alumni. But it's no different than the way I do it is no different really from one of these other sites where you're keywording. Mm-hmm. So, that's something that is important to me, is having those keywords so you can pull it up.
What does your archive look like? What do you put in that metadata?
So I'll put things specific year, month, player name, national TV, atmosphere, celebration. If there's a special night, let's say it's military night, then I'll put military night, or things like road travel, certain just keywords that if somebody was looking for, I don't know, who knows, what they could be looking for.
Galaxy
10 years
versus
from
Revolution,
now.
right?
Yeah, or a certain player in, April of 2015. Then all of it, because the one thing with Zen, there's limitations with Zenfolio too, is you can only pull up 500 shots.
Oh, at a time?
Yeah, at a time. So if I've got a whole ton of images of some player who's been there for a while, 500 is not going to cut it, because we have a lot, So that's where if you put in, Zlatan Ibrahimovic 2018, then you'd get a refined
Okay,
search.
they'll cut it down.
Yeah.
Not to everything you've ever shot of him, but just that year.
Exactly.
That saves you a bundle.
Yeah.
That could be exhausting trying to find all those photos.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Some of the people that I work with have told me they spent hours sitting there, just looking at stuff because there's so much. Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, I know.
What's the best photo you've taken?
Best photo I've taken, well, there's one that really sticks out to me as far as one that I'll never forget when I was there, but it was the playoff game against Portland, Game 7, Kobe to Shaq, and he throws the lob, Shaq puts it in, and they're going to win the game. And there's that photo of Shaq celebrating. Mm-hmm. it's not the greatest sports photo. It's not going to win awards, whatever. But I remember that like that just moment, because I was watching the game. I was like, I got to do what you're not supposed to do as a sports photographer.
You're
caught up in the moment. You're supposed to be engaged. I was caught up in it. There was emotion. They were coming back from, and I was getting excited. And I was like, man, you know, like they could actually pull this out. And so I got caught up in that, but had enough, you know, mental resilience to still capture that moment. So that one to me is like, it's just one that I remember thinking like, dude, I got that, you know, because that was the one that the NBA was asking for at that time. And then as far as the like best one, right?
Someone comes to you and says, Robert, make me a print of your best photo. What do you make?
Man, that's really hard. Really hard. See, because I look at it as not right. Just best visually.
Yeah, no.
You know?
Just what you clarify as your best photo, which might mean nothing to a lot of people, but you're just like, it all clicked. It worked.
Oh, man.
Everything I wanted to do worked out.
I mean, it would probably be the one of Kobe Bryant where he came up and did a back dunk where he's got like the red, white, and blue shoes, and he's doing it because, you know, I think shooting on a Hasselblad, you know, and having the right timing in the right moment, like that for me was like, I remember that happening and being like, I can't believe I got it.
That's a big mirror slapping, so you hope you got it, yeah.
Yeah.
And I just remember how long that blackout seemed when that mirror would go up.
Oh, man. Yeah.
And then he's not there. What the hell?
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Because it's funny because actually that like the sequence is gone. You know what I mean? Like there's no, you know, like, yeah, you're just seeing that one thing at a time. But yeah, I mean, I would say probably, you know, like I've seen that photo reproduced, you know, as art. I know that like they've sold that photo like so many times over.
Bazillion times over.
Yeah. But, you know, there's ones that are like really like I'm saying, like the Shaq one was a cherished one. When we won the championship in 2014, you know, I had this photo of Landon celebrating, you know, with his arms up. And that to me was, you know, one of the more important moments because of everything that had happened to him that year. And, you know, capturing that moment of like jubilation and joy.
Right.
Yeah, but I mean,
is there one you wish you could have back you missed? Whether it was bad film, corrupted file, a ref's butt blocking you? Is there one that haunts you still?
I mean, with the NBA or basketball, I'm sure there is somewhere. But
there's a flash wizard that had your number.
Strobe didn't go off. I know.
God.
Yeah, all dark and all. You just see the outline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just enough to make it hurt.
Enough to know, like, oh man, I timed it right, but it didn't get it. I missed a photo of Zlatan a couple years ago that I was really mad about because I was getting ready for the post game, and it reminded me not to be a knucklehead and be prepared. Like I just got casual. Oh, nothing's gonna happen. It was like the last couple minutes of a game, and so I was getting ready to go on the field post game, and the dude scored a goal and he ran to the other side and he jumped on the boards, the LED boards, and he stood up on the boards like this with his arms spread.
He jumped on top of
the LED boards and stood there like he was Moses parting the Red Sea, like just stood there, and the crowd was nuts, like exploding all around him. He was right in front of him, and I'm standing there across the field with like a 16 to 35 in my hand, and my, you know, the 100 to 400 is like 20 feet away, and I'm like, oh man, like
this is gonna look great at 35.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and the ref is in the foreground, and yeah, it's. So that one was a reminder to me, like, bro, like you got to always be ready. Like,
it's not over.
Yeah, and because I was like, that's the last 2 minutes of the game. Nothing's going to happen.
They're going to kick it around and try just to burn time.
Yeah, and it was such an incredible shot. Like, so there was actually somebody who took a workshop of mine that sits there, and he had his phone, and Zlatan was right in front of him, and he took the most incredible photo of, like, he's looking up at Zlatan with his arms out. I mean, it is a gorgeous photo. It is just insane. Yeah, it's just with his phone. But he had the whole thing, you know, but the shot, really, the one that told the story was the crowd in the background,
right?
You know, around him, just going nuts. So I missed that one, and I mean, yeah, it still hurts, but yeah, it happens. What's yours?
Oh God, there's been a lot. I did a big campaign, and we had our hard drive stolen.
Oh no, dude!
I made the mistake keeping the hard drives together.
Oh,
we did
man.
an A and B hard drive.
Okay.
But we put them in the room, went out to dinner.
Oh man.
And for now, until the end of time, I will never keep 2 hard drives in the same room. They don't go back with the same people. I'll put them on different flights.
Really?
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy about how you just never think that it'll happen to you, or it'll never?
And then when it does,
that scares me.
And when it does, it doesn't happen. I don't want to say the bull crap.
Yeah.
But like, this was a major 6-figure client, and then it's just like,
Oh man, that must have been tough, man.
whoa, how do we explain? We've just spent the last 3 days shooting all this stuff. It's all gone.
Oh.
And it's never coming back.
Oh
Yeah.
man,
So it's like, oh,
dude.
ouchies.
I'm sorry, man.
Yeah.
That had to be.
But then there's there's the other ones, the ref's butt. I thought I rewound the 120 or the 220, and then oh god, geez, try to shove
you're
it
like
back.
putting it over. You're putting your body over it, trying to cover it up. Yeah.
There's always been those.
That's funny.
Yeah, but those happen.
Yeah.
Where do you get your inspo from? Are you a book guy? Are you a surf the web? Or you say you look a lot of baseball guys.
I do. Like, so that's, I mean, I'd say I'm not as fixed on Instagram as most people. I'm more of a Twitter person. I like to see kind of what's going on in the world and stuff. But so do you know who like Brace Hemmelgrain is?
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, the guy is guy's killing it.
Killing it.
Yeah. I mean, him.
I met him when he first got the job. And,
Really?
Yeah. And everybody was like, oh, this guy's, a spaz. He's never going to make it. And I was like, okay. I didn't know him yet. And then I met him at the All-Star game, and I'm like, this guy's going to be just fine.
Yeah. No, I mean,
He's phenomenal.
I dig it. Billy Weiss.
Yep.
I like his stuff a lot.
Billy and Mike are killing it out in Boston.
Yeah. It's like, so I see that stuff, and it really it really makes me feel like I got to step my game up. Like, this is what I want to do all around.
Yeah.
Not just a good action, but I want to have that good, behind the scenes, that good crowd stuff, the stuff with the light, the stuff with the composition where you just, all of that.
I mean, Bryce is going out to minor league ballparks and shooting stuff and traveling with the team and going on trips. I mean, he's doing some unbelievable stuff.
Yeah, seriously.
Now, the advantage with baseball, and I was with the club for 4 years, is it's 162 games. Spring training is forever. Mm-hmm. It's daytime, nighttime. The light changes throughout the year. When you start off in April, how it ends in October, totally different light.
Yeah.
That's the advantage of baseball. Its palette is so big that allows you to create.
Yeah. And what I respect, though, is that they're making the most out of it.
Yeah.
You know
Absolutely.
what I mean? It's not just like, oh, well, yeah, because you get great sunsets there, or you get no, it's all around. It's like in the hallway.
Yeah.
It's.
You follow Matt up at Denver? He's the Rockies team photographer?
Yes. Yeah.
He's great stuff.
Yeah. So the person who was their social media person played for us.
Really?
Yeah. His name is Julian Valentine. Yeah. But he just left to work for another company. But yeah, that's why I followed them initially because of him. And then I was like, oh man, like this work is, the kid down in San Diego does really good stuff.
Yeah, he was with Billy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean.
He was one of Billy's interns.
Yeah, I mean, and see, like, I just dig that stuff when you see these guys, like, just churning out these images and doing this kind of work. And, you know, it's not to say that I don't see that in other sports. It's just you don't see it as much. Like, you don't see that as much from, like, the NBA guys because they're limited in terms of like, they don't have that kind of palette of light that might happen throughout a year. But you know, the NFL guys do some cool stuff. The stuff that I find that I like most out of the NFL is their behind the scenes and their, you know, pregame moments and all that stuff, you know, but, I just feel like with baseball, like the stuff that they're putting out, the game action, all the way from start to finish, it's just awesome.
Great
it's just
stuff.
really awesome. Like, and I think to myself, like, what would I do if I was in that situation? If I was like a baseball team photographer, I don't even know, because it just seems like you got to be on point because, you know, you see some of their stuff and you know that they were, you know, premeditated. It was things that they were thinking about, the angles and stuff. And
I love like when Billy goes to the Fenway in winter. There's no game going on, but he shoots it with the snow everywhere.
Yeah, it's
I'm
beautiful.
Like putting on a cardigan, looking at his photos, going, "Good God, these are making me feel like I'm there."
Yeah.
Beautiful work.
And even the stuff as simple as like wide angles and overall shots.
Yeah,
like people don't think, they just think you just take it, like that you're going to capture what your eye sees. Like there's so much involved, like the sun's setting behind you and, you know, knowing how to expose it right to get to, you know, get the shadows the right way and even when to not mess with it and to let just the shadows go black.
Right.
You know?
There's a lot to be said for understanding that.
Yeah. And it's, so that stuff is inspiring. That's mainly kind of what I look at in terms of that. But, you know, like I follow a lot of random photographers. There's a guy, Aaron Anderson, who I like. Just his portraits are really cool. Like the scope of photography, like I just try to appreciate and look at other things. But
that's our advantage today, is we can see stuff all over the place. Where when we were starting, like you had to find it in a magazine. Hopefully it got published. Yeah. Sometimes your best work doesn't get published.
Yeah. Exactly. You know? Exactly. I don't know how much money you spent back in the day, but I used to drop a lot of money on like magazines. I would just go get a bunch of magazines.
Tons.
And just scroll through and see like what the fashion guys were doing, what, you know, what like in travel and leisure, like how were they shooting stuff? Like, you know,
Aperture magazine, all the things that it was hard to get a hold of. I spent many hours sitting in bookstores going through stuff and then deciding, okay, what can I afford? I got $28. What can
I know.
Which one's is going to get me there?
Yeah, but some of those magazines, it's crazy how expensive they are. They're like $15, $20 for just, you know, you're like, dude. They're just printing it on like thick paper and, you know.
It was quarterly, so it was a bigger, you know, big photo display.
Yeah, you know, communication arts, I used to love getting that, like looking at that one. That was like to see who was like the top of the top.
Right. I used to get French photo.
Really?
Yeah, because it had way better stuff than American photo.
Yeah, I could see that.
They were not worried about whether it was nudity or violence or whatever. They were showing really great, whether either conflict war stuff or advertising that you would see here and go, oh, there's a nipple? No, we can't show that.
Yeah.
It's like, for God's sake.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Are you a gearhead? Do you really get into your gear?
Not so much. I mean...
Are you mirrorless? Are you still flapping that?
The 1DX Mark III is still my preferred camera body.
Everybody's sliding to that mirrorless.
Yeah, and it's gotten better. Like these, so I have an R5 and R6 and two of the 1DX Mark IIIs. Okay. 1DX Mark IIIs to me, it's like it's the most solid, reliable, and that's what I want.
That's still your boy.
You know? For me, the mirrorless is at least Canon's. The autofocusing is on point. The color, everything all the way around. It's just not as intuitive to me yet.
Okay.
Because with the focusing, you know, if you just use the eye autofocus, 90% of the time it would just be boom, solid. You don't need anything. But when you're like me, you want to use the focus point. I'm used to the moving that thing super fast with the dials. Okay. And on the Canon mirrorless ones, you have to use touch screen.
Yeah.
That to me is it's not as intuitive.
No.
And like that's what I'm saying. Like until I fully commit to that, it's not going to be as intuitive. Now, this R3 that's coming out, I'm looking forward to like trying that out and seeing how that does. Because I think they want to bridge that gap. But yeah, I mean, as far as like, to me, like I said, like I was shooting games with a 5D,
that's great. You must have just burned through that thing that year. You must have shot so many frames.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think I ended up just like giving it away because I had shot so much on it.
What was that, like 4.5 frames a second or something, or whatever it was?
Like probably 3. It was like just 12 megapixel. Yeah. I mean, yeah, but I mean,
you made it work.
Yeah, but the stuff today is incredible.
Oh.
Like the technology, they everything. Like, it's. I mean, I think to myself, man, what would that have been like back in the day to have these camera bodies?
30 frames a second on that Kobe dunk.
It would have been insane, right?
Yeah, you'd had 180 images of him going.
Yeah, that whole sequence,
and then down landing. Emotion, all that stuff. That's what I've always felt like. I feel bad for like when I would sit next to either Andy or McDonough and watch, like they got the dunk.
Yeah, but you got that afterwards that they couldn't get.
And then they got him going up court, but it was like they never, you never see Andy's like great dunk jubo afterwards where someone's pumping a chest because that's not what the NBA wanted. They wanted the dunk.
Yep. And you only get a certain amount of those, what I mean? Like, and they're very nuanced sometimes because you can have like the weird face and the very next frame, both eyes can be completely open.
Yeah.
And it's fine. So that's the benefit of that. But then at the same time, like you're not going to necessarily, blow that up if you needed to.
Right.
Which I don't know that people are doing that as much anymore anyways, but.
Nate had one he posted, I don't know, long ago, but he had one where it was an older photo, somebody was dunking, but somebody else's strobe at Madison Square Garden had fired, and it just made this weird, like, enough to blow out the forehead. Like, it was, and you're just like, oh.
Yeah, I mean, those.
But 30 frames a second, you can pick a totally different one now.
Yeah, totally. And you shoot Nikon, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't, their mirrorless is garbage.
Really?
Yeah, I tested it out, and I wouldn't give it to my clients yet. I got to feel totally comfortable to go out and not worry about it. If I'm worried about it, I'm not working.
Okay.
I'm worried.
So for your high end stuff, what do you?
It's all still the D stuff, 5, 6. I'm not touching any mirrorless yet, or 850.
So you're not using like
none of the Z.
Okay, but like. Even in terms of like high end stuff that you're doing, like are you using Hasselblad or
no? Because everybody right now they either like here at work it's either phase 1, or we use Canon here, but everybody else has really kind of come to grips with being okay with a giant 850, a D850 file.
Okay. I mean, that's amazing.
It's a massive file.
It's a
massive file.
They're gorgeous files.
Yeah. So I'm not shooting anything square anymore for the majority of clients that used to be. Oh, you got to be RZ or Hasselblad or whatever.
Yeah.
No. I mean, I remember I went out and got a Mamiya 645 because that was a vertical magazine cover like standard. And I was doing a bunch of this stuff for like magazine work, and I was getting covers, so I just shot with that. And it was didn't have to worry about with a Hasselblad, like, I'm cutting your shoulder. I'm sorry.
Framing it right.
Come together.
Yeah. No, I remember that. Those days, that was kind of weird. You could put those little slits inside the thing so you knew
the
where
mirror to see it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't need that. No. It's off, and it drove me nuts.
Yeah.
I ditched it.
Yeah.
What still lights your fire? What still inspires you?
As far as
shooting, are you like when you get up? Are you still like as fired up today as you were when you were that kid walking into the forum?
Yeah, I think the possibility, and I think that's why we gravitate towards sports. Like people who shoot sports end up realizing that they really like shooting sports.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what's going to happen, you know, and I always, when I go to the stadium, I always think that something crazy is going to happen.
Sure.
You know, and a lot of the times probably doesn't, but you think that it's going to happen. And then so you're just psyching yourself out for this potential moment that might happen. And then all of the other potential moments that tell the story about that day. So that's what I like to try to think about in terms of like, okay, how is this day going to shape up? What's going to happen? What's going to be the story? Like, you know, and you're trying to make pictures that are indicative of that are trying to, when you look back at it, and if there's a photo gallery or a carousel of images, you're just trying to really capture that and tell that story. So for me, that's really like what I try to think about in terms of the one moment that could happen, or, you know, that elusive slide that I never seem to get, you know? But yeah, I mean, stuff like that, I really feel like, all right, you know, I'm going to make some crazy shot today. So, because I don't know if you're the same way, but I always feel like I can make a better shot.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I can make a better shot.
Oh, yeah. I'm not done.
Yeah.
If I think I'm done, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
Yeah, I want more. I'm constantly trying to more.
Exactly.
I want better.
Yeah.
Being around athletes and shooting as much soccer as you do, especially if you're traveling, it's, you know, at least once a week you're shooting soccer. How are you keeping yourself in shape? Because if you're getting to a game at 2:00 and the game's at 7, you've got to have a meal in there at some point, because you can't be going to bed at midnight and not having a meal. How are you keeping yourself fit?
I know we talked a little bit about it earlier, but like sleep is very important for me. Sleep is super important because everything else kind of, to me, revolves around that. So if you're not getting good sleep, you're probably not going to eat very well. And if you're not sleeping very well, you're probably not going to have the energy to exercise,
right,
or to be, you know, motivated enough to like make yourself a nice, healthy meal. So, you know, to me, it's just kind of been one of those things where I want to be the best photographer that I can be. Like I know that, like, just physically, like I'm not where I used to be. I just can't be, you know, be that person anymore. So I like yoga, like I love doing yoga. It's been incredible for me, like health wise. But I notice a difference when I'm taking better care of myself, when I'm, you know, running, like I try to, on game days, I try to like at least go for like 35 minutes on the treadmill, you know, just try to get my blood flowing.
Right.
Something that simple. Obviously I try to get as much sleep as I can. It's hard when you have jobs lined up. If there's a concert at Honda Center and I don't get back till late and then I have to be up, or it's just certain things you can't control. But you do see the difference. I feel like you do, especially as you get older. You see what happens when you just put a little bit more attention on, you know, maybe don't eat all that junky stuff late.
Right.
Because my thing is I want to have this career as long as I can. And there's always somebody coming up behind you who wants your job. Mm-hmm. So I have to give myself the best advantage that I can. And that's just being in the right mental state, the right physical state.
Now, are you talking about like hours in your sleep, like trying to get like 5, 6, 10 hours? Like what's your sleep in a day?
So minimum of 7.
Okay.
Minimum. Like you need between 7 and 9 hours of sleep.
Are you doing white noise?
I do white noise.
Okay.
Yeah, I do white noise.
You got the dark curtains, trying to keep it as dark. And
the dark curtains, I haven't got into the room yet.
Okay.
Yeah. But that's like,
I got that. They're fantastic.
Yeah, they're amazing. So this past week on the road, dark curtains, like, out.
I'm nighty night.
I try to do natural melatonin. So tart cherry juice is really good for that. You take that for a few weeks, you get into your cycle, boom. And that's the other thing, the sleep cycle. You know, I try to get up at the same time every day, no matter what.
Right.
no matter what. It's just on me to get to bed at the right time, so I get the hours, because the sleep rhythm is key in that, to get those cycles to go through. I wear the Apple Watch right now for monitoring my sleep, but
Even while you sleep?
yeah, I just switch it to the opposite arm.
Okay.
But I've talked to our fitness guys on the team. They're really big on the Oura Ring. And so I'm kind of thinking about going that route, because supposedly it does a really good job of checking that. Yeah, I mean, that kind of stuff. I mean, I just try to manage it as best you can. But even things like how late you eat, you know, can't
And
have
what
those,
you eat.
Yeah, you can't have those, you know, can't have those heavy, greasy meals, you know.
Yeah, we're not 19 anymore.
Yeah, and it does affect your mood. Like,
Oh,
there's
hell yeah.
been so much about your gut health and how it affects your mood. And, you know, sometimes I'll be working and I'll just feel kind of like out of it. And then I'm like, what's going on? Like, why am I so, you know,
Sluggish or off,
today?
yeah.
You know, like, you know, when you have those times
Oh,
when you're
yeah.
off, and I'll think like, oh, well, I kind of, you know, I was drinking yesterday at my uncle's house, and, you know, I probably should have stopped before 3 o'clock, but you know what I mean? Things like that, just little things. So, you know, it's a discipline, and it takes a little bit, you know, to get, you know, into the mindset of doing that. But I mean, I feel like once you do it, you'll be on the right path.
Right.
So
Full circle, you're back at Art Center as a faculty. How did that happen?
So the chairman at the time, Dennis Keeley, was just looking for somebody to get sports back involved at Art
Really?
Center. Yeah, because it hadn't been involved, I think.
I just wouldn't think of Art Center and sports.
Yeah, no, there's not a big demand for it. It's not like a really big,
Right.
A big thing. But
Product, fashion, that's what I'm thinking. I'm not thinking like how to lay down a bunt and take a picture of it.
yeah, and so, you know, he had some students who were interested in it. And so, you know, through Canon, he got my information. And so he reached out to me and said, hey, like, would you be interested in doing, you know, like a independent study with some students? And I said, yeah. I said, that'd be cool. And he said, well, you know, it hasn't been as requested, you know, sports and stuff, but I'm starting to notice more and more interest in it. And, you know, Andy had been there for a while trying to, you know, work with students, and, you know, they've had a few people, Tony DeZino, who was, you know, an instructor of mine back in the day. You know, so to me, I was like, I'd be happy to help. You know, it's pretty simple, just a, you know, independent study. So started with that, and then, you know, then it started to be like, oh, well, let's start to consider, you know, a more involved class, like a workshop. So we were going to try to do it last year. Obviously, everything happened. We're aiming for this summer, but with all the restrictions, like, I want to bring students to my job.
Right.
So the fall is actually when we're going to like have that like 5-6 week course. And then from there, we'll see where it goes.
That's
you know?
great.
Yeah. So I'm excited about it, because like I love teaching, and I love talking to kids and picking their brain about
You enjoy it a lot?
Yeah. I like where they're kind of coming from, and, you know, to see a little bit of that like naive perspective, and just say like, okay, I see where you're going. Here's what you got to think about, you know? And like we were talking about the business side of it, like, you know, and so with this course I'll be teaching on sports action, but also on like shooting portraits and some of the things that you deal with, like working with agencies.
Right.
The differences between being somebody who's like a staff or a team photographer or a freelancer. So maybe I can have you come in and speak to the class as a guest.
Love to, because God knows those kids need help.
Yeah.
So often they're just lost.
Yeah.
They just need some direction. So it's good that you're able to do that and help them out. I mean, that's what they need. People with real world experience, not a bunch of guys who haven't been on the field in 30 years.
Yeah.
They just don't know.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's why I feel it's important bringing them out, like getting them involved in it, getting their hands on, because it's different. You get out there and even in a like it's not a high school thing. These are like fast-paced action professional athletes. Things are happening fast. Like everybody who's taken the workshop that we've done with Canon has been like, man, like I didn't realize how like fast all that stuff happens and how like they're fumbling over their cameras and what to grab and everything, and they're, you know, framing it right. And it's like, yeah, it's you know, it's not as easy as you think.
Where can they find those workshops?
Well, we don't do them anymore with Canon.
Oh,
Canon stopped doing those.
Oh, that's a mistake.
They stopped doing them. So I've actually been talking a little bit with John Lawrence about sort of doing those as like a freelance type thing. It's just, I mean, like even guys like Zach Noyle, who was one of their big workshop guys. I mean, they've done so many great things, and they just didn't want to invest in that anymore. They got out of that game, especially with the pandemic. They just were kind of like, yeah,
right,
we'll support. Now, if you wanted to put on Matt Brown's workshop and you went to Canon and say like, hey, I need 20 cameras and 20 big lenses, they'd probably fully, you know, support you with that. But they're like, well, we're not going to pay you to do it. You're going to have to make the money on your own,
right.
Which, you know, is fine. So
it happens.
Yeah. I mean, it's not, you know, I mean, I'm still doing high schools. I work with Elsinore High School.
Good.
The Port of LA High School is going to be coming out in August. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, just trying to do it, trying to share it around, man.
I am so happy that you're doing great. Everything's working out, and that young, spry, very thin little kid that was running around the
goofy
forum.
Knucklehead. No, man.
It's all worked out.
Yeah, man. Well,
I have my bro moment with Chuck Mangione and you and Garrett.
Dude. I know. And I miss G, man. Like, you know.
I got to have him on. I'm going to track him down. I'm going to get him on for sure.
I hope so. I hope so. Dude, those were great days, man. Like, you know, you and Kent and John, and like, it's just that era, man. It's like, I don't want to say golden era, but it was just like.
No, say it. It was.
You know,
it was.
Like, I mean, it's like I'm saying, like, dudes like you who are trying to take that extra step and trying to just be creative and be different and like, yeah, I mean, and same thing with Garrett, like he'll do the one stroke,
right?
You know what I mean? Like,
he's trying, he's constantly trying to make something.
Yeah, I mean, and those things, like those help shape me. You know, today. So yeah, I appreciate you having me.
It was the golden era, because I look at it now. I caught a game, I don't know, a couple weeks ago. I look at Andy and I see him sitting there. He's all alone. Like, yeah, he doesn't have McDonough's claw right up against him. Yeah. There's nobody there. It's just, he's all by himself, and then flip his glasses down to look, and he'll flip them back up. And it's like, we used to have it so good when we were stacked asses to elbows in that place. Yeah. Those were the good days.
Yeah, I know they were.
Where can people find your work?
Just at robertmora.com, Robert Mora Photo on social media.
All right.
Yeah. Hopefully.
Follow him.
Thank you. I appreciate it, brother.
You're the best, man. I appreciate your time.
You're the best, man. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Cool.
That was awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to part 2 of my conversation with Robert Mora. You can check out his work at his website, robertmora.com, or on his Instagram page, Robert Mora Photo. Please click the like button. Please click the like button if you like this episode. Also subscribe as well. You can find all our shows on the website, justgoodconversation.com.